Greetings, everybody. I want to welcome you here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here today for Commonalities Compared. This is an episode we do every Sunday night in which a subscriber of mine, Ben, and a friend of mine, he picks two albums from his vast collection, or to something of rock, basically, was what it is. So it could be two guitar players, or two bass players, or two drummers, or two albums, or two bands, two of something that have something in common with each other, and then I talk about them and compare the two. So the two he's given me today gave to me a while ago, but we put it off to do the Bruce Dickinson, Paul Di'Anno one last week. So this week we're going to do these two bands. One is called UK, which is a band that came out in the late 70s, I believe. Had two albums. They were a progressive band, and some might say progressive commercial band that were like a supergroup. The other band is Transatlantic. This is another super band, but from a much later period in time, and they are from bits and pieces of other bands as well. So first thing I should make clear is that I've never been a fan of these super bands. I'm hard pressed to think of one super band that I've ever really enjoyed immensely. In fact, I can't think of any. The closest is probably Cream. They're probably the biggest of the super bands for me, and one of the first ones as well, but I've never really followed them too closely, the super bands. I did like Asia for a while, mostly because of Steve Howe. But other than that, I haven't really followed a lot of super bands. But in the case of these two bands, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, I have had a little bit of dealing with both. I think the music of both of them, at least on the UK second album, I think were really good. So for UK, they had two albums. Their first album, very almost progressive super story, and then the second album, not so much, a more commercial, but I thought it was a more concise album than the first one. And thus far, even though it wasn't maybe as progressive, I thought it was a better album overall. Where with Transatlantic, I think all their albums are pretty decent. They have a lot of interesting sounds. You've got one of the best drummers in the world in the band, and Mike Portnoy as well. So yeah, these are two bands that, as super bands, have done very well for different eras. And unfortunately for UK, they didn't continue much beyond that. But those two albums, were a pretty commercial force. I don't know that Transatlantic is as commercial as them, but definitely has a little bit more of a commercial feel than maybe some of the bands that they took their parts from, I guess, as you might want to call it. Lots of, and the time periods, both bands had well-established, well-known musicians from both bands and brought them together to make these. Another band like this is probably the Chronicles of Father Robin, a bunch of Swedish bands that have all come together to produce this thing, which has taken them over 30 years to come up with. So that may be the only supergroup that I like quite a bit. But anyways, both bands, very strong, very well known. I would say that UK is more well known to the older crowd of progressive progressive rock, whereas Transatlantic would be more well known by the more younger crowd, I think. And the other thing that they have in common is I haven't really followed either band excessively. I've listened to some of their stuff here and there, but I don't actually own any albums by either of the bands. Not that I don't want to, it's just that when I get to the store and I got like $40 on me and I see one of their albums from either of these bands for like 15 or 20, I always find something I much rather have, and that's just the case. So what'll eventually happen is one of them will be cheaper than it normally is, and I'll buy it, and then maybe that'll cause me to go and want to spend more money. But at any rate, that's my two bands we're talking about today: Transatlantic and UK, two supergroups from very different periods of time. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please hit the like and subscribe. That's much appreciated. If you want to hit the notification bell, you can do that. It's above my head. Or if you want to talk about the two bands in the comment section below, you can. Or maybe you want to talk about some other super bands that you like as well, you can do that as well. And we will be back next Sunday night with two more commonalities to compare. Two more rock commonalities to compare. So take care, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.